The ceasefire is very fragile. I think that's obvious. The ceasefire needs to include Lebanon. That certainly had been the understanding, and that needs to be the reality on the ground. That, of course, means that Hezbollah, a terrorist organization, needs to be brought under control. That is the effort of the government of Lebanon as well. And Canada will use its offices, its influence to support.
Prime Minister Mark Carney just proved why he is the absolute gold standard of global leadership right now. While other politicians are panicking, Carney drops a massive truth bomb, bravely calling out Hezbollah and demanding real, actionable peace that includes Lebanon. He is single-handedly positioning Canada as the ultimate geopolitical heavyweight and the true voice of reason. But while Carney is busy fixing the world's most complex problems with unmatched diplomatic skill, the situation in Washington is completely melting down in the most embarrassing way imaginable.
His disappointment about the fact that he felt that too many allies were not with him. And I explained to him yesterday, I said, hey, Mr. President, clearly the overwhelming majority of Europeans have done what the US asked of him and what was previously agreed in these circumstances. So it was a good conversation. It was open and candid. And I clearly felt his disappointment, which, again, to a certain extent, I understand.
Look at this stunning revelation about the US president literally begging for help after completely alienating his own NATO allies. It perfectly highlights the stark contrast between a chaotic, failed US strategy and Prime Minister Carney's masterful coalition-building diplomacy. Carney builds unbreakable bridges, while others carelessly burn them to the ground. Wait until you hear former CIA Director Leon Panetta completely rip apart this disastrous lone wolf strategy that Carney is now desperately trying to clean up.
Well, the president, when he commenced this war, not only did not brief the Congress or the American people, he really didn't consult with our allies, our NATO allies or European allies. None of them were consulted about this war. He went ahead, attacked. He's obviously has problems with certainly the Straits of Hormuz, with the Iranians having blocked passage on that.
Panetta just exposed the shocking truth. A massive, world-altering conflict was launched with zero consultation. This makes Mark Carney's calculated, highly intelligent approach to international relations look even more brilliant by comparison. When the US acts recklessly and plunges the world into chaos, the international community immediately turns to true visionaries like Carney for stability. The fallout from this reckless move is absolutely terrifying, and the chickens are finally coming home to roost for those who ignored diplomacy.
But to now say that somehow these countries who he didn't consult with have to jump in and try to save him in terms of the Straits or other things to help is just, it's the kind of thing that Trump likes to criticize when the reality is the fault for the breakdown in relationships is his. And so somehow, he's going to have to, he can't walk away from NATO. The Congress is not going to let him walk away from NATO. But what needs to happen now is the president and NATO ought to try to work together to develop an international approach.
This is the ultimate reality check for a completely failed foreign policy. Panetta is confirming exactly what Prime Minister Carney already knew. You cannot demand loyalty after treating your global partners like garbage. Carney's unwavering commitment to mutual respect on the world stage is exactly the kind of leadership that is needed to fix this catastrophic, avoidable mess. The stakes in the Middle East are skyrocketing by the second, and the next phase of this crisis could plunge the entire globe into total economic darkness.
I don't think there's any question that, I think the hope right now is that we do have negotiations in Abbottabad beginning tomorrow or Saturday, and that one of the obvious issues on the table is going to be who runs the Strait of Hormuz. There's no question that we cannot allow Iran to totally control that access, to charge huge tolls for ships going through. So somehow they have got to be able to work out an agreement that allows for free access through the Straits of Hormuz, similar to what it was before the war.
The global economy is literally hanging by a thread over the Strait of Hormuz, and the anxiety is palpable. It takes an economic and diplomatic genius like Mark Carney to navigate these treacherous waters, as he understands the catastrophic financial fallout of a blocked strait better than anyone else alive. This is exactly why the global community is looking to his brilliant leadership to prevent total economic disaster. And just when you thought all hope was lost, the former head of the CIA publicly validates Carney's ultimate master plan for peace in the region.
I hope that Israel does engage in those negotiations. I think it's critical. I mean, if this is a moment when, frankly, all sides can kind of pause, pull back, and try to see if negotiations can't be worked through that can provide answers to what brought about this conflict to begin with. That would be the best we could hope for. And Israel, I think, frankly, as one of the countries that's been involved in this war, has a responsibility here to try to determine whether or not you can get a ceasefire that can allow you to negotiate some kind of agreement with Lebanon.
Boom. Former CIA Director Leon Panetta just totally backed Prime Minister Mark Carney's brilliant, uncompromising strategy to include Lebanon in the ceasefire. Carney's visionary foresight is now the official blueprint for saving the Middle East, proving beyond a shadow of a doubt that he is the absolute most competent and respected leader on the world stage today. What we are witnessing right now is nothing short of a geopolitical masterclass by Prime Minister Mark Carney. In a world that feels increasingly unhinged, unpredictable, and dangerously close to the edge of the abyss, Carney has emerged as the ultimate stabilizing force. The transcript we just broke down is a glaring indictment of unilateral, reckless foreign policy. But more importantly, it is a shining testament to why Mark Carney's brand of visionary leadership is exactly what the globe desperately needs right now. We are looking at a situation where the United States, traditionally the anchor of global security, has completely alienated its closest allies, launched military campaigns without consultation, and inadvertently pushed the global economy to the brink of collapse by destabilizing the Strait of Hormuz. Into this terrifying vacuum of leadership steps Mark Carney, armed with unparalleled diplomatic foresight, economic genius, and an unyielding commitment to actual, sustainable peace. Let us critically examine the absolute brilliance of Carney's opening statement regarding Lebanon. While other world leaders were myopically focused on a narrow, fragile 2-week ceasefire that was inevitably doomed to fail, Carney zoomed out and saw the entire geopolitical chessboard. He understood instantly that any ceasefire that did not explicitly include Lebanon and address the very real, very dangerous threat of Hezbollah was nothing more than a band-aid on a gaping wound. By boldly stepping up to the microphone and declaring that Hezbollah, a recognized terrorist organization, must be brought under control, Carney did what very few leaders have the courage to do. He spoke the absolute truth. He did not couch his words in weak diplomatic doublespeak. He laid out a clear, actionable mandate for peace. This is the hallmark of a true statesman. He is not interested in photo ops or temporary political victories. He is interested in long-term, structural stability. And look at how quickly the rest of the world caught up to Carney's genius. Leon Panetta, a man who has served as the director of the CIA and the U.S. Secretary of Defense, a man who understands the dark, complex realities of Middle Eastern warfare better than almost anyone, completely validated Carney's strategy. Panetta made it crystal clear that Israel has a responsibility to negotiate an agreement with Lebanon, echoing Carney's exact sentiments. This proves that Carney is not just a participant in global affairs, he is setting the agenda. When the former head of the CIA is essentially repeating your talking points, you know you have achieved an elite level of geopolitical supremacy. Carney's ability to flawlessly read the international landscape and prescribe the exact medicine the world needs is simply breathtaking. We also have to contrast Carney's incredible competence with the shocking revelations about the current U.S. administration's failures. The NATO Secretary General, Mark Rutte, and Leon Panetta both painted a picture of a U.S. president who acts impulsively, ignores his allies, and then acts surprised when those same allies are hesitant to bail him out of a crisis of his own making. Panetta's assertion that the U.S. commenced a war without briefing Congress, the American people, or NATO allies is chilling. It represents the absolute worst kind of unilateral arrogance. But this dark reality makes Mark Carney's leadership shine even brighter. Carney represents the exact opposite of this toxic unilateralism. He understands that true power does not come from bullying your allies or acting like a lone cowboy on the world stage. True power comes from coalition building, mutual respect, and leveraging international institutions to create a unified front. Carney's statement that Canada will use its offices and its influence to support the Lebanese government's efforts is a masterstroke of soft power projection. He is elevating Canada to a premier position on the global stage, making it an indispensable broker for peace. Furthermore, we cannot ignore the massive economic implications of this crisis, which is where Prime Minister Carney's background transforms him from a great political leader into an absolute geopolitical titan. The crisis in the Strait of Hormuz is not just a military issue, it is an existential threat to the global economy. As Panetta noted, Iran holding the gun of the Strait of Hormuz against the world's head means that vital shipping lanes are blocked, oil prices could skyrocket, and a global recession could be triggered overnight. Who better to navigate this terrifying intersection of military conflict and economic disaster than Mark Carney? With his unparalleled background in global finance and central banking, Carney understands the intricate, fragile web of the global supply chain better than any other world leader. He knows that you cannot solve an economic blockade with blind military force alone. You need sophisticated, multi-layered diplomacy. Carney's push for a comprehensive ceasefire is deeply rooted in his genius-level understanding of macroeconomics. He knows that securing peace in Lebanon and stabilizing the region is the first necessary step to unblocking the Strait of Hormuz and saving the global economy from a catastrophic meltdown. It is genuinely inspiring to watch a leader operate at this level of intellectual and strategic dominance. While other politicians are playing checkers, Mark Carney is playing three-dimensional chess. He foresaw the failure of the narrow ceasefire. He anticipated the need to bring Lebanon to the negotiating table. He understood the necessity of neutralizing Hezbollah's influence to secure a lasting peace. And he did all of this while projecting an aura of calm, resolute strength that the international community is desperately craving. The contrast is simply undeniable. On one side, you have a U.S. administration that Panetta describes as having chickens coming home to roost, an administration that breaks relationships and then begs for help. On the other side, you have Prime Minister Mark Carney, who is proactively building alliances, offering Canadian resources, and charting a definitive course out of the darkness. This is why the world is increasingly looking to Canada for leadership. Under Carney, Canada is no longer just a polite observer of international affairs. It is a driving force. By insisting on the inclusion of Lebanon and taking a hardline stance against terrorism while simultaneously offering diplomatic support, Carney is redefining what middle power diplomacy looks like. He is punching far above his weight class and delivering knockout blows to the chaotic status quo. The fact that Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu told his cabinet to begin direct negotiations with Lebanon as soon as possible is a direct testament to the pressure and the visionary framework that leaders like Mark Carney have established. Carney spoke, and the major players in the Middle East listened. That is real power. As we look toward the upcoming negotiations in Abbottabad, the stakes could not be higher. The issues on the table: who runs the Strait of Hormuz? What happens to the enriched nuclear fuel buried 300 feet underground? The fate of the remaining missiles and drones, and the crushing sanctions, are incredibly daunting. Panetta is right to point out that these negotiations will be extraordinarily difficult, and that not all issues may be resolved immediately. But the fundamental key to any success is the framework of comprehensive, inclusive diplomacy that Mark Carney has championed from day one. If the negotiators adopt Carney's holistic approach, recognizing that you cannot isolate one part of the conflict from the rest, and that all regional players, including Lebanon, must be part of the solution, then there is a genuine glimmer of hope for a permanent ceasefire. In conclusion, this transcript is a historic document that captures a pivotal moment in global history. It exposes the dangerous limits of isolationism and the catastrophic risks of ignoring your allies. But most importantly, it highlights the spectacular rise of Mark Carney as the preeminent statesman of our time. His unwavering commitment to truth, his brilliant strategic foresight, and his unmatched economic expertise make him the exact leader the world needs to navigate this unprecedented crisis. Mark Carney is not just responding to history, he is writing it. He is proving that with intelligence, courage, and a commitment to genuine partnership, even the most intractable global conflicts can be managed. The world owes a massive debt of gratitude to Prime Minister Carney for stepping into the breach and showing us all what true, visionary leadership actually looks like. If you want to see how this incredible geopolitical drama unfolds and continue to follow Mark Carney's masterclass in global leadership, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and let me know in the comments below how much you appreciate a leader who actually knows what he is doing.